Hey everybody, Steve here, and this is The Buried Life. So, what ends up happening, a little bit of background, I'm retired in Korea, as it says here, and being retired in Korea is really interesting because when you retire overseas, generally what you see are a reduced amount of expenses, which is probably the reason why most people retire overseas. Stretch that American dollar, make it go further, retire early, enjoy your golden years, and so on and so forth. But with that being said, you're trading some benefits, and there's also some things that some bumps in the road that you're going to hit. And one of those comes in the form of medical care. Now, here in Korea, it is great because the medical care is great. But the problem is, their system is really, really overworked. And I've talked about this in some past videos where resident doctors are on strike. And it ends up about 10,000 of them are on strike. I think there's like 100 teaching hospitals. And so a lot of them just, turned in their resignation letters and said, hey, we're not going to do this. We're overweight. We're underpaid, blah, blah, blah. Which is interesting because this just came out. This just came out. What I just told you right now, February 26th, that's today. That is what just came out from these people. Before it was like, no, we don't want any more doctors. And like I said in the previous videos, they're severely overworked. They work like 100-hour weeks. There's tons of people. It's crazy the mass volume of people that go through these teaching hospitals and these big hospitals because, let's face it, residents do most of the work. They have some supervisors over them and then some supervisors over those, but those get few and far between. And so the brunt of the work is done by resident doctors, kind of similar to the United States. However, in the United States, doctors they don't work as much as doctors here in Korea. And so we're going to go over this. And I want to give you a little bit of insight as to the Korean healthcare system. They don't have GPs or general practitioners or a general doctor where I can go to the doctor and say, hey, oh, my back is acting up. Oh, my GERD is I need to get a refill on that. And oh, by the way, I need some meds for this. And then I need, I got some mental health meds that I need refills on and so on and so forth. Generally, a GP or a PA that you see, whoever is your primary care manager in the United States, will refill those medications. They'll see you for all those problems unless it is something serious. And then you will get a referral and then you will go to that specialty and then that they will deal with you and do whatever they need to do. So the GP is great as a catch-all for all of these things that kind of streamlines our process when it comes to the medical system and healthcare in the United States. If you're born and raised in the United States, that's all you know. So you might think it's inefficient, you might think this or that, but I tell you, until you go to a foreign country, and I've been to a few, it is something that is very, very different, and you come to appreciate it in the United States. Now, here in Korea, it's great because medical costs are lower, and I can still get seen. I have better quality care, I think, from what I experienced in the United States. It's not saying all care in the United States is bad. It's just what me and my wife experienced. We get better care here in Korea. We've never had, we had one doctor with a bad attitude, and that was actually today. We went to a local hospital, and it ends up that that person was, I don't know, whatever. The doctor woke up on the wrong side of the on the wrong side of the bed, and it just wasn't working out for him. So he was a little curt in his responses and so on and so forth. And okay, well, what do you need? And blah blah blah. And okay, is that it? And his attitude was a little lacking in our opinion because in our first appointment that I had with him, it was really good. But the difference between the United States and Korea is Korea. If I wanted to get refills on medicines, now I have to go to that specialty or that doctor to get the refill. So if I need refill for GERD and some GERD medication, stomach medication, then I got to go see the gastro guy. And if I have mental health, I got to go see the psychiatrist guy. And I got to get an appointment and he gives me the refill and whatever. And then if I have pain medication and issues with my back, then I got to go see the back guy and or girl or whatever, the doc, and they give me all of those medications, get the refills. Now, of course, with new prescriptions, you're going to get a referral and you're going to go see that specialty in the United States. Here in Korea, yeah, it doesn't matter. You're going to see that specialist for the back pain medicine, for the GERD, for the mental health, or whatever it is. You have to make an appointment with each one of those. So that's a lot of appointments. And for people that get older tend to have more appointments. And here in Korea, that's part of the problem, is that you have such a large amount of people, about 52 million people, and about a fifth of the population is getting older, and older populations have more and more appointments. And then on top of that, in the United States, in my experience, maybe it's different, take a listen and tell me what you think in the comments down below. Anytime I've had to get prescriptions, it has always been, okay, we're going to try this, and boom, they give you a 90-day prescription. So refills are good for 90 days. Very different here in Korea because they will only write you prescriptions for 30 days. We tried, hey, well, it's, my TRICARE is paying for this because I'm retired military. Eventually, we're going to get these medications on the military base. So, can you make it for 90 days because that's kind of the standard, and coming here every month is kind of a pain in the butt. Nope, only 30 days. You have to make another appointment. So again, there's another trip to the hospital at least once a month. So the wife and I, what we end up doing is we make sure our appointments are on the same day. Then we go to the hospital, the Korean hospital, and we get our refills for this and that and whatever. But you have to get appointments for each specialty. So if I got 3 or 4 things that I need refilled, I need to go see 3 or 4 doctors. So that pretty much wipes out a day right there. The wife, she's got to see a couple of people and whatever. So our trip to the doctor to get medications and refills only lasts for 30 days, and then we have to do it again the next month. Maybe that has something to do with all of these doctors being overworked. And it's really interesting because, like I said, in this Korean doctor strike, and we'll take a look at this here, the Korean doctor strike, it ends up that severe public health alert issued for the first time as these 8,900 or 8,400 doctors in protest plan to raise the number of training medics or trainee medicines or medical students. So with a fifth of the population being old in age and need more appointments, these people are overworked. They say that they're underpaid and so on and so forth. I haven't been able to find out where when their last pay raise was. But being a doctor in Korea is probably one of the highest professions that you have. So today, the 26th, is interesting because it's like day 4 or 5 of the strike. And in this article, it talks about how the government raised the public health alert to severe for the first time after thousands of doctors walk out. Emergency departments at all but one of the country's biggest hospitals was on red alert as they continue the strike. So really what it's talking about is there's like 100 hospitals that that residents can go and do their residency in. So they basically walked out. And then also 46% of the current medical school students stopped going to class in protest of the government wanting to make more doctors, allowing more people to go to medical school so they have more doctors so that they can combat the overwork and overburden that these doctors are currently experiencing and will continue to experience as the seniors get older and have more problems. What are the odds? You pretty much got everything on a scale of efficiency and effectiveness, and you've done everything you can, and now it's time to hire more doctors. But when the government says, hey, we need more doctors, and here's the proof, and here's why, and here's this, these doctor coalition, which I kind of reference as being kind of like Jimmy Hoffa and the mafia-involved union organizing type thing. It's like, no, we don't need more doctors. We need less doctors. And in the past, the government has wanted more doctors, and they went on strike, and 70% of the doctors went on strike. And it's absolutely insane because they said, no, we don't want more doctors. Matter of fact, we want you to have less doctors, which is a very odd thing to say if you're overworked. That is the exact opposite of what somebody would be thinking as to an answer to this. So, here they are, they're protesting and all this stuff, and the ministry, the raise of healthcare disaster risk from cautious to severe is the first time due to this walkout. Now, it's really interesting because you go through this article and it talks about everybody's frustrated, and I've reached my 6 articles for The Guardian, but it ends up that 76% of the respondents were in favor of getting more doctors because they're so overworked. There was another article that I referenced that the average time that a doctor spends with a patient is 3 to 4 minutes. So yeah, it's cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. They can run through a volume of people way more efficiently and effectively than in the United States, but now it's past the breaking point because now it's getting worse and worse. So now the question comes, what is behind this? Why are the doctors striking if the government is saying, here, we want to give more doctors so that you won't be as overworked, and the Doctors Mafia Coalition thing, people are saying, no, we don't want more doctors. It's because of money. There's some type of corruption involved and so on and so forth. And part of this is appointments for everything. As I mentioned before, everything has got an appointment. Prescriptions are only good for 90 or 30 days as compared to 90 days in the States. So you have to go back every single month. Well, guess what? Prescriptions and appointments, those all cost money. So who gets the majority of the money? It's not the residents. It's the senior staff and administration of this Doctor Mafia Coalition thing that they got going on. And oh, by the way, one of the previous demands of this Doctor Coalition Mafia group going on, they went on, they said, well, we need more money for administration and senior staff. And it's like, we need more senior staff. So somebody's trying to rub the back of their buddy in the good old boy system and so on and so forth. It's pretty clear to see. But this medical coalition is turning doctors, these resident doctors, against their own people. And it's insane because, it's now a cash cow. We don't want more doctors because that will cut the amount of money that we can make talking on the administration and the senior doctor scale. And we're not even talking about the residents. Imagine this. Any job that you did where you are backlogged and you don't have enough employees to service the products or the goods or the service or the people that you are hired to do, and you're doing the work of 10 people, then guess what? Would you say no to 5 more people being hired on? No, you would welcome them with open arms because you are working double shifts, you're working overtime, and the overtime that these doctors work is very severe compared to the United States, and we'll get into that. So yeah, it is really, really interesting that these doctors have turned in their resignation. The doctors or the government has said, no, you need to come back to work. There's a threat of them being arrested and their licenses being taken away, and it's just absolutely crazy. Doctors mass walkout say they are overworked and unheard. This is the first time that I have heard this, and this was updated 2 hours ago on the 26th. And what's interesting about this is these weren't included in the original demands of the Doctor Mafia Coalition before this started and the first 2 or 3 days. But now suddenly it's everybody's overworked and underheard and underpaid. So this is a whole different take. There's a whole different scene going on here. So anyway, this guy, Park Dan, realized his childhood dream of being an emergency physician is also one of over 7,800 interns and residents who have resigned in confrontation with the government, which threatens to arrest them. Imagine that. You do the Hippocratic Oath that says do no harm and, to the best of your patients and so on and so forth. And they walked out, leaving their own countrymen high and dry. So anyway, hospitals have turned away patients from these teaching hospitals, canceled surgeries. About 2/3 of the country's young doctors walked off the job in protest. And also 46% of the medical students walked off. And as I mentioned in a previous video, it ends up, I said, well, hey, how are they going to pay their bills? How are they going to pay their student loans and so on and so forth? And we're already seeing some medical school students who said, oh, no, it's terrible, we're not coming back. They're coming back. And it's kind of amazing when you have bills to pay and so on and so forth. Yeah, or make the realization that, yeah, this is kind of stupid. I want to be a doctor. I'm going through medical school. I most likely have student loans, and I'm running the course, and I'm just going to stop. If I stop and go on strike, who's that going to hurt? It's only going to hurt your countrymen. It's only going to hurt you, because now if you quit, you still need to pay back the loans. And the same thing with these student doctors, these residents. If they quit and their licenses get suspended, they still have to pay back their loans. So anyway, it ends up that senior doctors and private practitioners have not walked out. So that's good. And here in Korea, it ends up that there's local doctors, small little clinics that can do stuff. But if you need to see a specialty or a specialist in something, then you got to go to the bigger hospitals. As long as it's not a teaching hospital, you're good to go. So, for example, we went to Good Morning Hospital here in Pyeongtaek. And we asked, that's the first thing we asked the International Health Office, where you go and hey, I've got an appointment, they speak English and whatever. And they ended up saying, yeah, that's not affecting us. We see a little bit more patients, probably because of the overflow and such, but they haven't had any doctors resign or anything like that. So they're doing good. So anyway, it goes through on here, and torn between patients and policy. This is interesting because now we're suddenly hearing about this, how they're being overworked, which we were before, but they're still rejecting the idea of the government saying, hey, let's have some more doctors, open up medical schools so we can have more doctors. And why wouldn't you if you're being overworked? Well, how overworked are they? Intern and resident doctors in South Korea work 36-hour shifts compared to the 24 hours in the United States, according to the Korean Intern Resident Association, KIRA. It says that half of the U.S. physicians work 60 hours a week or less. My daughter's a doctor, and it's probably a little bit more than that. While Korean doctors often work more than 100 hours. Ryu said he worked more than 100 hours a week at one of the country's most prestigious university hospitals for 2 million won to 4 million won, $1,500 to $3,000 a month, including the overtime pay. That's pretty darn cheap. A first-year resident averages about $5,000 a month, according to the AMA in the United States. So there's a big disparity of pay, but then again, expenses here aren't as much as they are in the United States. So, and then there's how well the economy is doing and so on and so forth. So again, it's kind of commensurate considering the expenses and so on and so forth. But they're only getting paid about, $1,500 to $3,000. It's more like $3,000. Hospitals have not processed resignation of the protesting doctors who say they are not on strike. So the hospitals, they're between a rock and a hard place. They're like, well, we're not going to accept your resignations because we need you to work, and hopefully you'll come to your senses and come back to work, and you'll accept the fact that you need more doctors. If you're working and you're being, like I said, if you're being overworked to this extent, you would want more doctors. Now, I get it. If your pay is low and you haven't had a pay increase in a while, yeah, then that's a whole nother thing. But that doesn't, there's no justification to walking out on cancer patients and patients who need emergency surgeries or, care, chemotherapy, the whole 9 yards. There's people that are scrambling. People are traveling to other countries to get medical care because Korean doctors walked off. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, emergency rooms at South Korea's 5 biggest hospitals were on red alert, saying that public hospitals would stay open longer on weekends and holidays to meet the demand. And like I said, we're at this point here in Korea where there's so many people, there's such a high volume, and these doctors are being overworked, but they don't want more doctors to go. They don't want more people to go to medical school to become doctors to help alleviate that burden, which really begs the question, somebody's getting paid and it ain't the residents. So yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. Says he's torn between his patients and a government enforcing policy without listening to the doctors, but had little choice. With pride to save patients, I came this far. As a doctor may say, it is heartbreaking and difficult to leave patients behind. But the current system is distorted, and we need better than that. This is really interesting that he says this, because in the past, in 2000, I think it was, 70% of the doctors walked off, and it kind of did this whole thing, kind of blackmail. Well, if you don't, we're going to go on strike, and if you don't bow to our demands, which at that time was don't hire any more doctors, we're going to quit. And then later in 2014, to help alleviate the overwork and the overburdened doctors, they wanted to establish and offer telemedicine. So what did the Mafia Doctors Coalition do at that time? They didn't accept telemedicine. They rejected it. So why? Money, follow the money. You will find out why real quick. But to help alleviate the burden, and so instead of people physically going to the hospital, taking planes, trains, buses, whatever, to get to appointments, you could just do telemedicine and get refills. Boom, like that. But then you wouldn't really have and I think what happened is that, this is just my opinion, that what happened is they realized they would not get a full price for telemedicine appointments versus in-person appointments. And so the Mafia Doctors Coalition rejected that, and we don't want that. And then again, they struck and said, until the government caved in and said, okay, well, we're going to bow to your commands and your demands and so on and so forth. And now they just kick the can down the road. Well, now this government and their administration have to deal with this. So again, when you follow the money, that's where it comes down to, is the money. And really, that's what we end up seeing here. If you have appointments, say, for example, if you have 1,000 people that need to get refills, that means they have to go every single month of the year. Not every quarter like you see in the United States, or some countries, they will give you 6 months worth of medications on a refill. Talk about minimizing the workload. So if you have 1,000 people that need to get refills on medications, just issue 90-day supply. Do a 90-day prescription, and then for the next 2 months, that's another 2,000 people that you don't have to see. Now, extrapolate that to how many people that need refills and medications and so on and so forth, and you start adding up the cost. That is big money. So where's all this big money going? It's obviously not going to the residents who are making $1,500 to $3,000 a month. So where do you think all that money's going? Maybe administration and senior staff. It is. That's what we end up seeing here in Korea, is that it's about money, it's about corruption. The Mafia Doctor Coalition here, that they don't want more doctors, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you were, like I said, if you were employed at your job and you're doing the job of 10 people and it is burning you out, you're working 36-hour shifts, and sometimes you have to work doubles, and you're working over 100 hours a week, and somebody comes up and says, yeah, we know you're being overworked. We want to offer and have, open up for you to have more employees. Any resident worth their weight in gold would say yes, because you could share the overburden, share the overworking that they have, because some of these people don't have lives. Some of these resident doctors don't have lives. They don't have time for meals. They, some of them sleep only 4 hours a night, and if you do a double, could you imagine doing a double 36-hour shift? Yeah, if you thought American doctors and residents had it hard, it's hard here in Korea. So I sympathize with the resident doctors here in Korea, but it's interesting because this wasn't brought up when the Doctors Mafia Coalition started talking about all this. Oh, the government just came out with a thing, said we want more doctors. We're going to open up more students can go to medical schools so we can get more doctors to alleviate this overburden that we're going to see in the future, and of course now. And the Doctors Coalition says, no, we don't want new doctors. And they made up some BS. You just listen to the interviews, and my wife and I are sitting and we're like, this is insane. No rational person would not want to have more doctors in light of all the information. And this chief spokesman for the doctors, and he's got a long ponytail, and it just gave me the willies listening to him. It was just like, yeah, he's part of the problem. He said, no, we don't need more doctors. We need less doctors. The government can't prove that we need more doctors here in Korea. And it's just like, yeah, there's a series of articles and over time showing how doctors are seeing patients less and less and less, and in regards to actual visits and appointments. Now it's down to like 3 and 4 minutes at a pop, and that's it. Do you think maybe some serious and important information might not be discussed within that 3 or 4 minutes that you see the doctor? Probably. Could there be some miscommunication? Probably. When everything is such cookie cutter, chunk, 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 chunk. Yeah. And is there an increased liability for the hospital because your staff are overworked? Absolutely. So why on God's green earth would you not want to have more doctors? It makes absolutely no sense. And so now it doesn't even make sense now, because this has just come out saying that, our doctors are being overworked and blah, 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 and all of this stuff. And it's just like, well, wait a second. You weren't even saying this, about a month ago. And all through that time, you were never saying that you're overworked. And when you reject telemedicine, there's only so much technology can do to make doctors' lives easier. You still got to take notes. You still got to do this. You still got to review files. You still got to get the background on people, new patients that come in. And here's the thing. There are so many people that see doctors here in Korea because they're so overworked. It's not like in the United States. In the United States, what ends up happening is that you have your GP, and you have the same GP for a number of years. So they become familiar with your Oh, hey, Steve, how you doing? How's your back doing? Is the stomach, is that all right? I remember you were talking about having some problems, with your mental health and the medication. You had that adverse reaction and started having hallucinations and stuff. Glad we stopped that. But so what are you here for today? So you kind of have that continuity in the United States. In Korea, sometimes no, that doesn't happen. But because they're so overworked and they have such a huge amount of patients that they see, like 100 a day, do you think a doctor that's going to see 100 patients a day and he works 5 or 6 days a week for an entire month, he's going to remember you? Maybe they'll remember me because I'm 6 foot to 250 pounds and I have round eyes and a beard and I'm kind of Caucasian looking. I'm not the average person that goes to a Korean hospital. So yeah, maybe I stick out, but even then, is that really enough time? So, I just find it strange that this information is just popping up now after four, I think we're on day 4 or 5 of this strike, and we're just hearing about in the Korean news and on Reuters and other news sources showing that these doctors are overworked. But they don't want more doctors. Yeah, I mean, if you're working 100 hours a week and you're getting $15,000 to $3,000 a month, including overtime pay, you should be paid more. Of course, that's going to raise the cost of healthcare in Korea a little bit more, but you don't walk out on your on your patients. I mean, that's just, you took that Hippocratic oath, which is to do no wrong, which is not something you should do. And again, it goes back to following the, let me see if I can find this. Yeah. Going back, I mean, it really doesn't make sense to the point of where, you're so overworked, you're so overburdened that you don't want more doctors to help take up the slack or take up the overburden or the overtime. I mean, could you imagine if they hired enough doctors so that the resident doctors could actually have 2 days off a week? Maybe work just 70 hours a week or maybe 80 hours. I mean, that would be probably something really good. Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath is something that's really interesting. And pretty much all doctors follow the Hippocratic Oath. And let me see if I can find it here. The Hippocratic Oath has been modified over a series of time and so on and so forth. And let's just go ahead and take a look at this. So the Hippocratic Oath, it says, I swear to fulfill to the best of my ability and judgment this covenant. So it's not just, I'm showing up to work, collect a check, boom, and I'm gone. It is a covenant. It is an oath. It is serious. I will respect hard-won scientific gains for those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply for the benefit of the sick all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. I'll remember there is an art to medicine as well as science, and warm sympathy, understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemicals or the chemist's drugs. I will not be ashamed to say I know not, nor will I fail to call my colleagues when the skills of another is needed for a patient's recovery. I will respect the privacy of my patients, for their problems are not disclosed to me that the world should know, most especially since I tread with care in the matters of life and death. It is given me to save a life, all thanks. But it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play God. Kind of sounds what the Doctors Coalition is doing. They're trying to play God. No, we don't want more doctors. We're gonna blackmail you into, Anyway, I digress. I will remember that I do not treat a fever chart, a cancerous growth, but a sick human being whose illness may affect a person's family and economic stability. My responsibility includes these related problems if I am to care adequately for the sick. I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. I will remember that I remain a member of society with special obligations to all my fellow human beings with sound mind, body, as well as the infirmed. If I do not violate this oath, I may enjoy my life and art, respected while I live and remembered with affection thereafter. May I always act so as if to preserve the finest tradition of my calling, that I may long experience the joy of healing those who seek my help. And there's different ones, different types of Hippocratic oaths or versions that has been updated and scrubbed in over time. But basically, do no harm is, that's usually the first term. If you talk to people who have any type of decent schooling, do no harm. That is probably one of the main tenets of the Hippocratic Oath. And the fact that you're going on strike and walking off without regarding your patients and their health, and now they can't get life-saving surgeries, they can't get their chemotherapy or whatever it is, that just seems disingenuous that you have violated your oath, in my opinion. There is a time that if you are not getting paid what you should be, that's a whole different matter. But it shouldn't come at the expense of your fellow countrymen and the people who reside in your country. I don't know. It's just a silly thing, But what really bothers me the most is that, show me the money. And that's what we end up seeing. So stuff like this, this 30-day prescription stuff, they could alleviate a lot of undue burden by doing telemedicine and doing 90-day prescriptions. But here's the rub. The senior staff and administration won't change that because of the money. Show me the money. That's what it's all about. So, yeah, it's very problematic, but it's interesting on how this is unfolding. And like I said, 46% of the medical school students quit going to school in protest. So that just shows you how far the tentacles of this Doctors Coalition has got its fingers and tentacles into, and how far they reach. But now some of those medical school students are coming back in and they change their mind and they're going back to school. Because in all honesty, do you think that if you quit medical school, that the Doctors Coalition and this, whatever association, all the bigwigs and the senior staff and administration, do you think they're going to care or give two shits about you when you quit medical school? No, but they called you to strike. But they don't got your back if for some reason that you get kicked out. Same thing with the doctors. The doctors, for some reason, this coalition had convinced all of these doctors to turn in their resignations. What happens if the government calls their bluff and says, we're not playing by your blackmail rules? All doctors that don't report in, guess what? Your license is suspended. What's going to happen? How are you going to pay your bills, your mortgage, your rent, your food? Oh yeah, and your student loans. There seems, I've got a little bit of sympathy for the doctors, but when you walk out of people that need life-saving surgeries and so on and so forth, as a doctor who took an oath, that is a whole different profession than law enforcement or anything else, to where you can say, you know what, I'm fed up with this, I'm leaving, I'm done. It is way different to be a doctor. Now, could you imagine being a doctor, walking off, and then, the regular people, the majority of Korea, 76% of people in Korea are like, yeah, doctors shouldn't be walking off. And they agree that doctors should be paid more. But we need to streamline the system. But when we want to streamline the system, the Doctors Coalition says, no, we don't. We don't want that. We don't want telemedicine. We don't want more doctors. We want to keep it the same. But they want pay raises and they want more senior staff. When was the last time senior staff pulled a double 36-hour shift? Zero. Or even a 36-hour shift. Zero. Or 24 hours. Zero. When did senior doctors and officials, take up the slack when somebody got sick? No, it's always the resident doctors that get screwed. So, I've got a little bit of heart for the resident doctors. My daughter is a doctor, and so, we heard all the stories and so on and so forth with residents and all they go through and the work hours, and it's painful, folks. It is absolutely painful. But it's even more painful here in Korea. So I can empathize with the doctors, but I think this coalition of whoever represents these doctors that convince them to walk away from their patients and their sacred oath, that's follow the money. Follow the money. And in a previous article that I read, it was talking about there's like $7.4 billion at stake that is coming into the equation. So, it sounds like somebody doesn't want to split up the pie with more doctors. They want to keep their pie, and matter of fact, they want to get more pie. So that's why they don't want to hire more doctors. So, residents be damned. So I think I think the administration, the Doctors Coalition, is off in their own little world. They sound and remind me of a dangerous religious cult. No, we don't need more doctors. And the residents are kind of caught in the middle, and then you have the people that are paying the price. So. But yeah, could you imagine how much they could reduce the burden that is being placed on resident doctors is if they did, 90-day prescriptions? That would be incredible. That would alleviate a lot of pain, but it would come at a cost. So somebody's not going to get paid, so that's why they didn't want to do telemedicine. That's why they don't want to do 90-day prescriptions. Something has got to break here. And like I said in my previous video, there's a couple of options. There's actually three. One, the government says, yeah, you're right, we're going to cave and we're not going to have more doctors, allow more doctors into medical school or people into medical school to become doctors. So they're going to kick the can down the road and let some other administration deal with this, which has been on par since 2000 and maybe even a little bit before that. There's been a number of incidents where it's like, put it on the next guy or gal. The other option is for the government to say, you haven't returned back to work and we're going to make good on our promise that we're going to go arrest these doctors and we're going to revoke their licenses, and you will never work in the medical profession again in this country. That would fix the problem right there. You stop the blackmail by saying, okay, is that what you really want? You really want? You're so convinced that you put in your letter of resignation and you're refusing to work. Okay, bam, you're not working. You said you don't want to work and you walked off the job. Guess what? Now you can't work in the medical profession anywhere. And then what's the response? That's going to hurt the people even more. So, but what you could do is you could hire doctors from other countries. You could hire doctors from nations that are not as economically successful as Korea. Offer them and say, hey, you get tax-free if you become a doctor here in Korea. You don't have to pay any taxes. You'll get this pay, which is probably more than what they're making in their own country. It helps the Korean people. It helps these doctors out. And again, I think that would be an incredible opportunity. You can't allow people to hold your own fellow countrymen and citizens and hijack them. You can't kidnap them. You can't use them and their health and the lives of people, of your own countrymen, as a way to get your point across, especially when you show in the past that you don't take any advancements or any help, and you don't want any more doctors. And again, like I said, that just totally blows my mind. And the fact that all these people are doing all this work and they're not getting paid overtime or enough overtime, they definitely should be getting paid more. But again, look at the situation. When people in the United States, when they're residents and so on and so forth, you're only supposed to work X amount of hours. But we all know it's a little bit more. But during those times where you work more and more and more hours, there's cases of people working 120, 140 hours a week and so on and so forth. And then what happens? That's where accidents happen. That's where mistakes happen. That's where there's medical malpractice. And who ends up taking the brunt? It ends up being the patients, the people that the doctors serve, because they're being overworked. And when you're overworked and you don't have enough sleep, you make mistakes. What are the odds? It's like that with every single profession. There's more regulation on construction workers to, following OSHA standards so that they can be fit to work and so on and so forth. But with doctors, no, not so much. It's kind of like you're only supposed to work 80 hours a week, but do these notes on your own time. Do this other work when you're at home. You see what I'm saying? It's like, so officially you only worked, but when you're at home and doing work, that needs to be addressed as well. So, we've seen that in the United States. So how much more of a problem is that here in Korea? I can only imagine. So, yeah, it comes down to money. And when you have it to where, people have to come in every single day to get prescriptions, you have to get appointments for every single thing and every single specialty, instead of having a general practitioner or primary care manager to take care of some of the smaller things to alleviate the drain that is on all of these specialities. It just shows that there needs to be some restructuring when it comes to medical system here in Korea. But with that being said, I know that's a lot of harsh judgment on the Korean medical profession, but I will leave on a positive note and say again that I've had the best medical care that I've had in my life here in Korea. When I had my eye surgery and I had detached retina and retinal tears, I had like 7 retinal tears, detached retina. I had to get a new cornea because it was cataracting and all jacked up. The care that I received, the quality of care was incredible. The facility at Samsung Medical Center was incredible. The cleanliness, the professionalism of the staff. I mean, everything was top notch. And of course, it's all covered by my TRICARE. So, that's bonus there, but you got to have health insurance anyway. But it is some of the best care that I've had. And like I said, I used to be able to say that I've never had a bad attitude by going to a Korean hospital or clinic, but we did today. We had the one doctor who was something was off on him because he was not a happy camper at all, and he was really pissed. And it was nothing we did. It was just, he was curt and I don't know what his problem was. So that was the one Korean doctor. So there's one. There's always some bad apples. But hopefully it was just a bad day and that gets resolved and he becomes a more happy and well-adjusted person. And that's definitely not the norm. The norm is, how are you doing? Good. Let's get to the problem. Let's deal with it. Because again, they're under a time crunch. Whether you're at a teaching hospital or a regular hospital, they're booked a lot. There's a lot of people that go through the doors of the hospital, regardless of which one you go. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on here. What is it like where you're at? How many days can you get for a prescription? And what are the processes to get refills, either in the United States or other countries? Or if you remember, hey, I lived in this country for a while, that country for a while, put that in the comment section down below. And for everybody else, what ways do you think would help Korea, who is really overworked? I mean, just by you going to the doctor where you live, what are some things that would be good ideas for Korea to implement to take the drain off of the Korean resident doctors that they have now? Well, they don't really have a drain now because they all went on strike. Most of them went on strike. But how could you improve service? So let's hear it from the everyday people like you and me, and we'll see what we get off of that video. Okay, so that's going to be it. Really interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I was going to point over here. Maybe I need to put that picture on both sides. So no matter where I point, if I take this and put it over here and one over here, then it doesn't matter where I point that I'm good. I think that's a good idea. So like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Appreciate that. And we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Show me the money.